raise your hand if you hate firing people. Yeah, me too. I think we all do, right? And I see most entrepreneurs when there's some issue with their team, waiting way too long to fix the problem, to have the uncomfortable conversation, and letting it go so long that they ultimately have no choice but to fire that person. And I know that because that was me until I learned the ultimate hack to avoid firing people, which may come as a surprise, but actually doesn't when you think about it, is actually hiring, onboarding, training. When we do these things correctly, we get in front of all of the performance problems that most often lead to us having to fire someone. So if you want to never fire someone again, learn how to hire and onboard. And in this video, I am going to break down exactly how to do that. So I had to learn this lesson the hard way. I had to learn it by firing a ton of great people. I would find myself sitting across the desk from that person, having to let them go and thinking to myself, God, what happened? They're so talented. They're actually a great person. Why am I here? Why did I let it get to this point? And every single time I did that analysis, it came back to one of two things. Either I didn't have the right person in the right seat, that's hiring, or I didn't set that person up for success, which is onboarding. And so when I was an early leader, not knowing what I was doing, I kept burning through all of this incredible talent until I realized that if you wait until there's a problem to step in and fix it, that problem has already gone on so long and gotten so big that it is almost impossible to fix. Versus if you proactively show up right from the beginning, all of the down the road problems literally disappear. They actually just don't happen. The best metaphor I can think of is like your health, right? If we wait until we have heart disease to start exercising and eating well, the problem is already so far gone that even if we take all the right actions at that point, it's almost too late to fix. Versus if we just eat well and go to the gym from an early age and consistently, we eliminate the problem before it ever begins. And hiring and firing is exactly the same way. When we hire and we onboard correctly, we are guaranteeing that we get the right people into the right seats. And then when they step in, that first 30 days is the most important 30 days of the entire employee lifecycle. If we can take the time to do that correctly, then we are saving ourselves so much time and so much money in the form of underperformance that never happens, people that you never have to fire because they just do the job correctly from the very beginning. And actually the upside is that they're going to do that job better, faster, with more ownership and be more self-managing if we just get these first steps correct, to the point that you would never even dream of firing them if we just get these first steps correct. This is why I'm absolutely convinced that hiring and onboarding are the most important processes that you can install inside of your business. And as we're about to see, it all comes down to having a measurable definition of success, setting the key performance indicators and the metrics that define success in the role, finding the right person who can hit those numbers, and then onboarding and managing them up and holding them accountable to those numbers from the very beginning. To help you do this, we actually created a tool for our clients that I call the A Player Command Center. It is one tool that is going to allow you to track your team's performance, level them up, and ensure that everybody is working on the right things and being held accountable to the right standards. This is such a powerful tool. We've actually just made it free and available to everyone now. So if you want that, the link is in the description. And this A Player Command Center is going to take all of the best practices that we're talking about in this video and turn it into a tactical, actionable tool that you can use to start up-leveling your team immediately. So go ahead, grab that in the description, and then use it to follow along with what we're talking about here, which is step number 1, hiring. The job of hiring, very simply, is to guarantee that I get the right person into the right seat. How do we do this? Most entrepreneurs, especially when we're inexperienced or just starting out, focus on the person. I'm gonna go get awesome people who I trust, probably out of my organic network. They're gonna be generally competent at a bunch of things, and I'm gonna build my business based off of a small group of people that I like, that I trust, and that get shit done. And then I'm gonna figure out what roles they're capable of filling, and that's how I'm gonna get the right person into the right seat. Almost all entrepreneurs do this, and unfortunately, they get it entirely backwards. When we take people that we really like, and then we build roles around them, we end up with a Frankenstein org chart where we have a bunch of people wearing a bunch of hats. And the problem is, down the road and at scale, what you end up with is a bunch of people that you like and trust enough who may not actually be the right fit for the role that the company needs filled. And then you're left with the terrible position of needing to fire your best friend or the person who's been at your company for years and years and is so loyal to you. And it gets messy and it gets complicated and we put it off way too long, even though we know inevitably it's still gonna end up with us having to fire them. So how do we avoid that entirely? We avoid that by switching the order. Instead of first finding great people and then designing roles around them, we first design the role and then we find the right person to fill it. So this is why the very first step in my hiring process is building what I call a job scorecard. And again, the template to this is in the description. Go ahead, grab that. So the job scorecard very simply is a definition of an A player in the role. And we build this before we ever interview anyone. Before we start the hiring process at all, we begin by asking ourselves the question, what is this role? What does the company need filled? And how would I define and measure success to know that I have a true A player in that role? Think about how like in marketing, you build an ideal client avatar so that you can market to them, right? In hiring, we build an ideal candidate avatar so that we can go out, hire, and attract exactly that person. So in hiring, if you want to guarantee that you get the right person into the right seat, start by defining the seat first. And then we take that job scorecard and we reverse engineer our entire hiring process as, again, essentially attraction marketing. We build a funnel that will go out and attract and magnetize through the exact candidate that we're looking for. And I have a bunch of other videos on exactly what that hiring process is and how to run that. That's the very first step, is that when we hire, we have to get the right person into the right seat. That's going to prevent us from needing to fire them down the road because we either had the wrong person or, again, we didn't clearly define the seat and there's simply not a seat available that they would be the right fit for. So that's hiring, absolutely essential. And that's where most founders stop. They assume that if I hire well, then I have an A player and they should be good to go and I've got no more problems, right? I actually think that onboarding, the first 30 days of a new employee's life cycle, is actually even more important than hiring. If we onboard correctly, we can take B-level talent and turn them into A player. If we onboard correctly, we can eliminate all of the underperformance, all of the micromanaging, all of the things that right now are leading to your team coming to you all day for everything and leaving you feeling frustrated, like you have to compensate for their deficiencies. Yeah, all of that disappears when we onboard correctly. And the data actually backs this up. Gallup did this big study that showed that in companies where employees went through a strong onboarding process, those employees stayed 3 times longer and they produced a 72% higher level of productivity. So literally for free, just by onboarding correctly, we can nearly double our team's productivity. That's how powerful onboarding is. Why? Why is it so important? Well, think for a moment about your client onboarding. Right? If you run a services-based business, you know how important it is to onboard your clients correctly. When we onboard them correctly, we set the right expectations, we set the relationship up for success, we've coached and trained them in what they need to bring to the relationship in order to be successful. Client onboarding is the single most important thing that you can do to move the needle on client retention and client lifetime value. Well, it's the exact same thing for your team. People just be people. The same stuff works. When we onboard a new team member, if we set the right expectations, if we tell them what they need to bring to the table in order to be successful, and if we get on the same page and align incentives, we maximize retention and lifetime value, aka how much value that employee is going to bring into your organization every single day that they work for you. So however much time you've devoted to mastering and dialing in your client onboarding, my invite to you is to devote at least that much time to your team onboarding process. And there's a couple of things that you need to make sure that you do. The first one is that we have to set explicit and clear expectation around what success in the role looks like. So you remember that job scorecard back from the hiring process? Yeah, we take that back out, and on day 1, I sit down with a new employee and I share that job scorecard with them. I am telling them from the very beginning, hey, this is your role, and this is how I am measuring success in your role. Here's what I expect in terms of targets and KPIs, so that from the beginning, they know exactly what success looks like. They know exactly what I'm expecting, and I have set the bar at A player. I've told them that, hey, minimum acceptable standard on my team and in this role is all the way up here. Now that I've set the bar, you now know exactly how high and how hard you need to jump. So we have to define our expectations and set our expectations at excellence. Those expectations also extend beyond just the measurable KPIs. And then what happens? I cannot tell you how many clients come to me and say, hey, Jhana, I have this team member, they're underperforming, it's pissing me off. And the first thing I ask them is, well, have you told them that? Have you told them exactly how and where they are underperforming? And then it tends to get really quiet. Why? Because when we don't set expectations from the beginning, and then our team starts underperforming down the road, we have nothing to hold them accountable to. Nowhere did we agree that this is what success looks like and this is how I was going to measure them. And so now if they're showing up down here, number one, they don't know that that's a problem. They have no idea that there's a gap there. And it becomes a kind of messy and uncomfortable conversation to draw that gap to their attention. We put it off, which means, of course, that they still have no idea that that gap is still there, which means they continue to underperform. We get frustrated, we get resentful, and then at some point we have to fire them. And again, 100% of that is avoidable if we just set expectations from the beginning. Because that way, even if down the road there is some underperformance, that conversation is now really easy. The conversation is, hey, on day one, we agreed that this is what success in your role looks like. And right now you're performing down here. So help me understand. Help me understand what's going on, because we both know that the bar is up here. And in order for you to stay in this role, you need to be up here. So what are you going to do to level up and close the gap? And because we have this shared understanding back to day one on what the expectations in the role are, it becomes really simple and easy to draw attention to a performance gap and to manage them up to close it. Which is why most times I have an underperforming team member, I actually don't end up needing to fire them. I'm simply able to draw attention to the gap, and then they will grow and level up to close that gap themselves. No firing needed. There are so many other things that go into a successful hiring and successful onboarding process. But if you nail these two things, where in hiring, you get the right people in the right seats, and then in onboarding, you set them up for success by explicitly defining what success in the role looks like, I promise you, you will have done the 80-20 of leadership and put in place the right foundation that eliminates down the road all the underperformance, all of the uncomfortable frustration that you have with your team, all of the issues that eventually escalate to you needing to fire that person. The harsh reality is that if you feel like you need to fire a lot of your team right now, it's not your team's fault. The ownership actually belongs with you. It's our responsibility as leaders to put the right people in the right seats and to set them up for success. And if we have to fire somebody, it's because we've failed to do one of these two things correctly, which is harsh. And again, I know that because I had to learn this the hard way. But on the flip side, the good news, fixing this exists entirely within our control. We can learn how to onboard. That's entirely within our ability. And there are proven SOPs and processes for all of this. And so if we take ownership for the problem, as opposed to pointing our fingers at the team and saying they're not good enough, then we unlock the opportunity for ourselves to level up our team, level up our leadership, and prevent so many of the fires and the challenges that would lead to us firing someone, which, let's be honest, we all hate to do anyway. As I mentioned, strong hiring, strong onboarding, it shouldn't just prevent firing, it should actually increase productivity. And there's a lot more that goes into onboarding and training specifically to make sure you are getting maximum output from the team that you have. So to break all of that down, I created a whole other video. You can grab it right there. This is how you double your team's productivity without having to hire anyone else. You can get the whole breakdown here. I will see you over there, and happy hiring.